Hello, welcome to this video. We're going to take a look at the Minuet and Trio form in detail. We're going to look at musical examples. There will be suggested assignments at the end so that you can actually put it into practice. It's a great way to start for a beginning composer, but even if you're more seasoned, it's a great way to understand how the principles within different forms contribute to the continuity of the music and the logical progression of thematic material. And then once we understand what the rules are, we know what rules we can break while still maintaining that sense of continuity. And then from this video, we're gonna take it into a multi-movement piece, because traditionally it's often the third movement of a larger work, like a string quartet or a symphony or something like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the form itself. So here is an overview of the form. I tried to make it as user-friendly and clearly laid out as possible. One characteristic feature of the Minuet and Trio is that it's always in triple time. I can't think of any examples in 6/8. Everything that comes to mind is in 3/4. You can always comment in the comment section if you can think of an example of 6/8. I'd be interested in hearing that. So a couple of things, and this is where rules can be broken. Now, we have 3 sections. Section 3 is essentially the same as section 1 with the exception of no repeats. So section 1 is made up of a theme, A, which ends in the dominant, and then repeats. Then it goes to B, followed by A prime. Now the difference between A and A prime is that A prime ends in the tonic, either major or minor, whereas A ends in the dominant. And I'd like to pose the question, why does that make sense? Is it an arbitrary rule, or what do you think? So if you think about the tonal center, the tonal center is the tonic. So if it ends in the tonic, it's more complete. So it fits better as the conclusion for this entire section. Whereas the dominant doesn't, so it allows more easily for new material. Now this also repeats, BA prime. So what we end up having is AA, BA prime, conclusion of section 1. Then we go to section 2, and it is exactly the same structurally as section 1, with the exception of it doesn't always end in the dominant of section 2. And the thing about the tonality of section 2 is that's also kind of open-ended. It might be the same tonic throughout all 3 sections, or it could be in something different. We're going to look at 2 examples of string quartets, and one will be in a different key and one will be in the same key, and one of them will actually end in the tonic, which actually has a nice effect, which I'll explain when we get to it. But it's essentially the same: C, C, D, C prime, D, C prime. And then we go to section 3, which is, like I said, a more concise section 1. A, B, A prime, and that's the end of the whole piece. So this is the trio. Section 2 is the trio. The minuet is section 1. And you'll see that often in the score, that it'll say minuet, and then when you get to section 2 after the repeat bar, it'll say trio. And then da capo al fine, back to the first section, and it ends right here. So we'll look at the first example. So the first example is Haydn's Opus 71 number 1 string quartet in B flat, the third movement. And here we see that the tonic, or the key, is the same in the section 1 as the minuet as in the trio. Now in this one, and I'm not showing off any piano skills, this is just a rudimentary rendition just so you can get an idea of how it's constructed. which is the dominant of B flat. So that is section A, and then of course it repeats. So here's section B and A prime. And then back to A prime. So you get the idea. Now it ends in the tonic. Now we'll look at the trio. Like I mentioned, it's in the same key as the minuet section. Also, C, which is analogous to A in section 1, ends in the tonic instead of the dominant this time. So in this case, which as I mentioned, it's in the same key as the minuet part, but here is C, which repeats like A, which is the analogous section in the minuet. But unlike section A, or theme A, it actually ends in the tonic this time. Here is C and D prime. So in this instance, since C ended in the tonic, there is no need to alter it at all. In other instances where it ends in the dominant of the trio, obviously it has to be altered in order for it to wrap things up thematically. But in this case, it's not necessary since it ended in the tonic, or in its original form. Okay, this is Beethoven's fourth string quartet. I don't remember the opus number. I think it's 18. But anyway, this is in C minor. Here is section A. Okay, so in this example, it actually ends in the tonic. It's most often the case that it ends in the dominant, but here's a counter example. It kind of goes to show that there's rule breaking for pretty much any rule. It just has to be done tastefully. Now, because of time and to avoid redundancy, I'm not going to play the entire piece, but I just want to show the layout of it as far as tonal centers and how each section concludes. So here we see section A of the minuet, B, followed by A prime ending in the tonic, and then here is the trio, which is now in the key of A flat major. So that's a rather interesting key relationship that Beethoven uses. So this was part one of a multi-video series dealing with the minuet and trio form. Now, at the end of each video, I'm going to assign a different part of the piece to compose, And your assignment for this one is the A section, which is why we played 2 examples of that part. And in each video I'll play multiple examples, and I'll do the exercises as well. So I'll show you what I came up with at the beginning of the following video. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please click like and subscribe.